With the launch of Pulseway 9.2, you will see the start of a major redesign of our policy management structure. So this new structure has been designed to give you a better experience, a more efficient experience, easier to manage policies, and also make it more dynamic. So you can you can actually automate exactly how policies will be targeted. It is going to be introduced in phases, and you don't need to do anything because any existing policies that have been created in earlier versions will automatically be converted into that new structure. There are three key elements to the new policy. The first of that is the profile, and the profile is a group of settings that effectively serve as that building block of policies. Let's determine what that policy actually does. Then we've got targeting criteria where you can actually specify the devices that a policy will be applied to. And the key thing here is it can be automatic selection based on the targets you define. And there's also extensions. And extensions are this is a kind of a major concept, and these allow you to make specific changes to a policy for a specific device or set of devices without the need to create a separate policy. So instead of actually having multiple policies that are very similar apart from one setting, you can create a kind of a master policy and create extensions that so therefore it can apply to every machine apart from one or two with a certain they're in a certain place or belong to a certain type of user or whatever it is. So you can make those extensions that help you target exactly where you want these things to go. Just to reiterate that point, so you've got the policy which actually has those targeted targets, the device targets, and then also the policies. That's that's fairly easy. That's not too different to what you're used to. Now, the policy extensions allow you to create that subset by filtering down the set of targets you have in your policy. You can then use the extension to define those a subset of targets that then your changed policies, your changed profile rather, can then apply to. So you've got your profiles and your target devices in your policy, and then in the extension, you will have a set of criteria where effectively creates a subset of those targets and also creates variations on your profile that will apply to that subset. So what will you actually see when you log into 9.2? Well, you will see that those endpoint policies have automatically been broken down into the configuration profiles and the monitoring profiles. And again, this only applies to endpoint policies. And so this is effectively what you'll see. You have your endpoint policy, and therefore the same endpoint policy will be displayed as those two separate policies with the configuration in one policy and the monitoring criteria in another policy. The first thing you'll see when you log into 9.2 is the new configuration section. Most of this will actually be familiar to you because organizations, teams, and user security and settings are just existing pages that have moved to this new menu. There is a new policies page, configuration page, and a new profiles configuration page. And that's what we'll look into now. We'll start with the policy page. So you'll notice on policies, there is a device configuration policy and a monitoring policy. So let's just pick app servers device configuration policy. So click on that. And then we can see there we've got the device configuration policy, and well, obviously nothing there at the moment, but we just go into configuration to show what it looks like. And this is where we can see there's a policy there, and there are profiles. You can assign a profile to a policy. Here's the policy here, and you can then define what you want that to be. So you can assign an existing profile to a policy, or you can create a profile here. As you're used to. So that's the policy configuration page. Then we have the profile configuration page. And again, we'll look at app servers. And you can see that there are multiple app server profiles. there's a general one here that we'll look at. Again, you've got that profile, the edit profile section here. We're looking at configuration, and you'll see again, this is where you configure the profile. So, we've got you've defined the policy, and then you've configured the profile itself. And another thing that you'll see is that the server admin configuration overview endpoint policy configuration box, which you previously had for every org, site, and group, will be replaced with a new selection box, effectively. So this is the situation you have now, where you've got the config box for each type of group. But here we see here, but this is what it's going to be replaced with, is that you'll now have a new device configuration policy button and a new monitoring policy button. So there are a couple of changes there, which may, the idea here is not to teach you how to use policies, but just so for you to be able to recognize the changes that have happened. So if you have an existing endpoint policy, so just to reiterate what's happening, so it'll be reconstructed automatically for you as a unique device configuration policy and also as a unique monitoring policy. The new policies will automatically be assigned to the same organization entity as your original endpoint policy had. So nothing of that has changed, so it will still apply. And then each policy will contain profiles with the same settings as the same endpoint policy. We're not changing anything, we just changed the way it has been displayed in and set up in the product. So your policies are assigned to the same entity as the original source, and the profiles are the same as the source endpoint policy. So nothing, you should see nothing materially changed there. So how do you work the new structure? So you create profiles that contain settings that you want to apply to various policies. So you create the profiles that contain settings you want to apply to various policies, but they must be of the same type. So you can only create a monitoring profile, you can only assign one of those to a monitoring policy. You then, once you've created those profiles, you then create a policy, and then you assign profiles to it. And so in this order, and then you assign that policy directly to an organization, site, or group. But this is, as I said, the first phase of a new design. So the first thing, and this is what is coming in 9.2 in March 2023, is we are decoupling those existing endpoint policies and converting to the new structure. So that is what we've just been talking about. The next step is to add targeting and extensibility. So the targeting and extensibility isn't here yet. We've just started with the changing the structure of the existing policies. So sometime in Q2, so sometime in April, May, June time, we will introduce the targeting and extensibility feature, and then over the rest of the year, into the second half, we will then convert the remainder of the different policies, the other policies, the patch policy, the endpoint protection policy, the backup policies, etc. We will convert those into the new structure as we've just done with endpoint policy. So we'll start with endpoint policy, then we will use targeting and extensibility. We'll introduce that feature so you can then get used to the benefits and the power of that, using that targeting feature. Then when you're comfortable with that, we will then introduce the new structure to the other policies, and so therefore you can then immediately start benefiting from the targeting features as well.